Hey, good morning, Siddharth. So let's get started.
Good morning, Karthik.
Yeah. All right. So as usual, let's begin with 1 minute of silence. All right. So if you're ready, you can come back to the session. All right. So good morning once again. So yesterday we looked at the basic things like what we covered, and then we revisited the last 18 days. I mean, some of it. So yesterday we discussed primarily about what is stillness and what is what is making causing us suffering. First of all we started with thoughts, then attachment to identities and etc. And also yesterday we covered about Brahma Viharas. So Brahma Viharas and how it helps us to be kind to the other person, be compassionate and joyous, and maintain the way of equanimity. And also yesterday we talked about tools. That's some of the tools what we discussed in the past. Primarily it is Ho'oponopono and switch technique, as well as submodalities. These are the three things we discussed. And today it is primarily going to be the things a little more heavy stuff. Like when I say heavy stuff, it is where it is all things which the intention of this program itself, it starts actually what the practice or what we're going to discuss today. That those are the things, it matters a lot for me at least, in the journey of the self-awareness, self-realization. The what is that the thing that we're going to discuss today matters a lot. So let's get into it and see how we can connect and revisit what we discussed in the past. So that being said, the first thing I just wanted to start today with, so there are three constants, which I think I may not have discussed in the past. So I somehow believe that there are three constants in life. The first constant is our pure awareness. When I say pure awareness, all I'm just referring to is there's something which is unchanging nature. So external situation changes, people change. Even if I just change from my house to some other house or a different country, everything can change outwards, the language, society, everything. But then the one thing that doesn't change is a person who's witnessing all, which is us. When I say us, not our mind, not our thought, but pure witnessing self. That is what we are trying to understand as a awareness. As an awareness, we are experiencing the one who is experiencing it, the one who's witnessing it, and that's what doesn't change. That's a pure awareness, doesn't change. It's not our thoughts and mind and identities and beliefs and etc., but the awareness. And the second thing which doesn't change is this present moment. Like when I'm talking about now, being present. See, there are things in life happens in our life every day, every situation. Those are all becomes content of life, right? The content of the present moment. There is something happening now. But this now itself as a stable or a constant, which always from time to time, it is going to remain constant as long as we live, right? So the present moment, it's constant. It is unchanging. You cannot put a The now may become past, but now always, when now can become past, and now again the future, from future it comes, but always we witnessing now, right? So that is a second constant what I'm talking about. The now, as long as we live, experience life, it now is going to be a constant. And the third constant, what I'm talking about, is stillness. So the reason of why it is a stillness, or you wanted to call it as silence, or the peace, or things, where the moment I say stillness, everything that happens in us, like, every thing that is happening around us, within us, and everything, there is a place which is still, which is not moving part. And everything that is moving is on top of it. So that is what I am referring it as stillness. So how these three things are connected, how I see it at this moment, is the awareness is the one it is capturing. It is just like, the spotlight which is focusing on what is happening, being completely aware and being the awareness. And now is aware the things, the plate where things are start happening, right? So the thing starts happening in our life. Just give me a minute. So things start happening in our life. I'll just that. Yeah, the thing starts happening in our life that happens in the now, right? That is the content of life that comes under the now. And finally, the stillness. If you have to experience the silence, there is a stillness below that. Everything, there is a below one place, all the noise, sounds, and everything that happens, and there is a stillness. So camera and focusing on what is happening at the moment, and the stillness below that. This is what we are talking about as a three constant. From here, this is exactly is what we're going to elaborate more on, what is in the coming session, the coming topics as we are going to discuss. And this also would have given you a slight understanding that I'm not referring to people, situation, thoughts, emotions, feelings, identities, values, belief system, nothing. Because all the other things are subject to change. Even our physical body is subject to change, right? So everything else changes. But then your awareness, the present moment, and stillness doesn't change. So with that, let's go a little more deeper into the session. So the first analogy that I wanted to give it to you is like in the past we talked about, there are two things happens. So there are external situation that can cause some kind of a discomfort or a pain. And then I explained this as a two arrows uh, thing. Like, the two arrow example is, well, you're walking in the forest, then one arrow that hits you straight. And of course, like, you will be in pain and etc. So if you are a person who's absolutely non-partial about the situation, what you will do is probably you will take a look at the wound, and you may wonder who hit that arrow, like, shoot the arrow to you. And then you will see how deep is the wound, whether can I walk or not. That is actually what is happening to you at this moment. You will be rational, you'll be objective about what is happening, and you will look into it. And the second arrow is our own mind arrow. Our own mind arrow is the physical arrow already causing a pain, whereas as mind arrow, it causes and then makes it 10x bigger. What it does is, like, it creates a lot of sufferings for ourselves. For an example, it can be from the past. So from the past, even if something that happened, like, from the other person that would have hurt us, or we hurt the other person, that way we feel guilty and all those things, like, we feel for our own behavior. However, that other situation, other person would have moved on, but then we will be holding on to those things forever. And then we will be going through the suffering, right? As well as in the future, that is imaginary construct that what we build, something we believe that, oh, this thing might turn out into like this. We always try to think the worst thing that possibly things can happen or turn into. And that is the imaginary construct, right? So the mental arrow is, it is kind of go on like, the first arrow which causes a physical pain, whereas the mental arrow, the mind, what we are thinking, we can keep on thinking about, oh, who is this guy who hit me, like, whether he doesn't have any sense, and then we probably say some uh, swear words and etc. And then we can go on and believe that, oh, so this is good, this arrow that hit me is going to make this wound bad, and then it's going to get septic, and that way I have to ampute my leg, and that way I will lose my ability to walk for my life, etc. and etc., which is mental constraint. So that is where the two arrows of example that what I'm trying to say. So what happens in our life, it is pretty much objective, like, it is happening, there is no denial about it, right? If I'm like, hurt my leg and then it is paining, it is paining. However, the second part, the mental construct, it is always within our grasp. And that is where some of this part of awareness, being present, and all these things comes into it, to examine our own mental pattern, to understand how good we are when it comes to the day-to-day life and situations. And that's where there's a quote goes like this, right? Don't try to change the external situation. Don't try to change the people or the other thing which is outward in your life. Instead, change yourself to be okay, be fine, be comfortable with what happens in the outside, right? It's okay. Whatever may happen, you don't get disturbed. And that's where I see awareness. It is some kind of a superpower. It is a, in a way, it is a superpower. When I say is, it is like a bubble that, like, it's shield that surrounds you, whereas it doesn't matter what happens outside, right? It may be the worst situation that you may have to put yourself into, right? It may be the worst situation, the worst things, but then with the place of awareness and objectively looking at things, you are not getting caught up with the drama of the mind and the illusions of life, and you try to be in a place of stillness. So that is the shield which protects you. Nobody can hurt you, nobody can harm you, because you are completely aware of what it is. So that being said, let's go into what are the other topics what we discussed. So before we go in, one sidetrack note is, so we talked about in one of the session is about the different levels of how we develop any skill. So we talked about something called unconscious, incompetent, conscious, incompetent, then conscious, competent, and unconscious competent. It's primarily like how we learn any skill, and the same thing is what applicable for awareness. So what I mean is, if you're trying to learn, we have car or something. So what happens is, the first stage is you don't even know how to drive, as well as you don't even know the need of why you should learn driving. And then we talked about, okay, I need to know driving, but then I don't know how. And then the third state is, okay, I am ready. I'm consciously going to learn how to drive. You start driving in the initial state. And that point in time, you're completely aware, you're sitting in the car, or it believes like the whole world is is still. When I say still, it is frozen, and then you're just driving. So you know about all those handlebar, all those clutch brakes and etc., accelerator and etc. So you be completely aware. As you start developing this skill, at one point in time, you don't think of any of those things. It becomes your second nature. And that is what we are talking about, being effortless or being in completely aware state. You're being an aware state. So even whatever we are talking today, it may be something very similar to that. When I say similar, so all these practices takes time. All I'm just not asking you is all of a sudden shift to the last one, unconscious, competent. It becomes my second nature. No, we are all trying to practice something is, how do we can inculcate or start practicing one thing, which is awareness. Just being aware, nothing else, nothing else. Just whenever we lose our mind and lose our things, if you can just remind us to be aware, okay, I got angry, that's fine. You don't have to do anything, just be aware. And that is what the state we are talking about. And that is what I'm referring it as conscious, competent. You're just being conscious and you're being competent of what is happening. So that being said, let's move on to what we discussed in the past is being present. So the first level of the thing how we can handle is try to focus as much as possible in the present moment. Things that is not the present moment is not content of life. If you look at, okay, so my son is crying one side, my wife is yelling at the other side, or that some doorbell is ringing, somebody is at the door, I have to go. These things are happening right now. But then it is the place or the present moment is, it is something below that where all these content of life is happening. So that is where we starts focusing. And in the past, we talked about what is being present. What is it like to be in the flow of life? So every moment that we experience is as unique as possible than a second before that, right? So everything, every moment we live, it is unique to us. So the moment we start focusing on the present moment, there are two things happening. The first thing is we are completely out of the realm of thoughts. Just imagine you're completely focusing on this session right now. You're sitting in front of me. Just focus for 1 second. Is if you focus, you'll see that the mind becomes quiet. It is as if, like, you're waking up the dream from the your own thoughts, emotions, the past drama, the future drama, or the all those imaginary things. You wake up and see completely alert. Okay, now it's happening. So that is the first thing. You're completely being in the moment or being present, right? That is where it is important. And the second thing that happens is you sensing that present moment, all of a sudden everything becomes like, okay, I'm aware of all things. And to give you one example, so in the past, there are situations when I was driving from Bangalore to Chennai highway. So all of a sudden, like, just driving casual highway drive, there is obviously, like, there is a four-way, a broad highway. So I don't have to really worry about uh, the traffic which is coming towards me. I don't have to worry about that. And I'm driving casually playing some music. So what happened at that night is there are three containers, the large trails and large container, the vehicle were passing by on the side, to my left side, right, left side, and I'm going to the right. I'm just trying to overtake. There are three. It's a huge trails, right? So it is three. And after I crossed the first one, the middle one, all of a sudden, like, he wanted to overtake the one before that. So he started turning. So for me, on my right side it is like, the median. I cannot go beyond that. There is a road is stuck, and I cannot brake because there is some person behind me, because obviously people are also trying to follow me to overtake this. I cannot apply brake, as well as I have to go forward. That is the only way forward. I mean, there is no other escape from that situation. So that moment, I have experienced something called, it is the flow moment, or the complete thing froze. Like, that the whole situation is like, it is happening in a microseconds. Literally, I became so aware of microseconds of what it is happening, right? So the trailer is coming this way, and then I'm pressing an accelerator, and I'm trying to hold the steering wheels, that so that, like, it is super steady. If I just leave it a little bit, I will go and hit the median, and I have to cross through. So if you can just mentally imagine the situation, it is something like, it is time becomes super slow. It is ultra slow. Like, I don't know what to say that word. And that moment, it is a life or death decision, or the situation where everything stops. Your whole consciousness, senses, and everything comes back to that one thing. That is how to drive past all the trials and then escape and live, right? So that is something what I can relate to when you're talking about being present. That is absolute stillness and being aware of what is happening. No more distraction with senses, thoughts, emotion, etc., but absolute stillness. So that way, the time slows down so drastically. And that's the reason people say time is a very relevant concept. When you're having, like, probably when you experience the first kiss, it may feel like, few seconds, but then it would have been long, right? So sometimes lifetime, like, literally stood still. And other time, this times it becomes super long, like, the second or couple of seconds, but it feels like eternity in a way. So that is what we are talking about, being present. Of course, it is not going to come handy the day that we are doing, but then just reminding ourselves time to time to be focused on what is happening, like, being present. Apart from, okay, now I'm letting go of my thoughts, my emotion, my sensation, my past, my future. What else remains? There we can find present, right? So it is also related to being aware. So now that we will go into the next step. Yeah. Yeah. So again, the one of the part that we're talking about, the being present, is the moment we start living in the present, there is something very profound that starts happening. That is, we can make a choice, like, so everything that happens in our lives, we can accept as it is. So that is another, the best practice is, okay, when you're in pain, you are in pain, accept it. That's fine. I mean, you don't have to fight the pain, right? So that way, being present, we can be much more receptive to things that's happening in our life. Then we can quickly look at awareness. So before we go into what is awareness, and then that one of the past session I talked about a story about Buddha. So one of the astrologer who found Buddha's footprint on the way. He follows the footprint and then goes to Buddha. And according to the footprint, he's supposed to be a king. Like, he's the ruler of all the seven worlds and etc. However, when the astrologer saw the Buddha sitting under the tree and then meditating, and his face looked so radiant and bright, however, its clothes were torn, and then he was having a bowl for begging and etc. So he's confused. Who is this guy? Right? So he's supposed to be a king, but whereas he's sitting here and begging. So he goes to Buddha and asks him, "Who are you?" And he says, "Are you a god? Are you a Gandharva? Are you a king?" In a different way, like, you dressed up differently and then you're here. So long story short, what he says is as simple as that: I am no one, but I'm awareness. I have no identity to anything. I'm just being purely aware. I am the awareness. He doesn't say I am aware, but he says I am the awareness itself, right? So that is the story of Buddha that we talked about when you're talking about awareness. So another story also, like, there is a monk, Bukujo. So Bukujo, what happens is he calls himself all the time, Bukujo, yes, I'm here. Bukujo, yes, I'm here. So people used to ask, why are you calling yourself so many times? He says that whenever my mind wanders off in thoughts, there's one part of me calls that Bukujo, that is his own name. Whether he is awake, he's sleeping, anytime, he calls himself and then says, Bukujo, yes, I'm here, right? So that is constantly reminding to be present, be aware of what is happening instead of getting lost in the realm of thoughts, imaginations, and all those emotions. So that is another story that we discussed in the past. So that being said, like, what is awareness? Then we went into a realm of understanding something called Turiya. Turiya, it is a state of the fourth state is a meaning. So to quickly touch upon what is the fourth state is, we all experience life in a different way or a different stages. So one is at this moment I'm speaking to you, it is a purely awake state, conscious state. At least that's what we experiencing right now. So let's keep this as a awake state, and I'm talking to you. That is conscious. The second one is a dreamful state. When we fall asleep, we are dreaming. So this dreaming state, sometimes we call that as unconscious or a subconscious state. I mean, the things that, comes into our minds in a subconscious way, right? Whatever the desires we have, whatever the things that happen on the day, whatever frightened us, these things comes in our mind while as a dream. It manifests as a dream. That's where they say it is not an unconscious, but subconscious state. And the third state is dreamless state. The dreamless state is no dreams, kind of a pure deep sleep, right? So obviously these trackers nowadays track all these things, right? It tracks like how much time, how many steps that you took today. It says, okay, you were awake for so long. Huh? And then it says, what is your REM is random eye movement, which is a dreamful state. Your heart rate goes up, everything goes up. This thing says that you dreamed for so long. The dream is very important for mind to consolidate. You dreamed. And it also talks about deep sleep. It says that, okay, you slept you had a deep sleep for so much time. I'm sure people who use the fitness trackers, I'm sure you will be aware, or that it tracks all these three things. So primarily these three things is what we are talking about. And the fourth thing, what we are trying to say, or the fourth state, or being pure awareness state, is that is a state of the one who witnesses that even you had a dreamless sleep, right? So some days you wake up and you tell to yourself, oh, today I didn't have any dreams. Okay, so you're not awake. That is clear. You're not conscious. The subconscious is, okay, you were not dreaming something. That is also clear. That's fine. And you were in a deep sleep. Agreed. But who's the fourth person, or the one who witnessed that you were not sleeping, or you didn't have any dream? Who's that person? Right? So that is what people call it as Turiya. Turiya is the fourth state. The Turiya, from the state of awareness, whether you sleep, you dream, or you become dreamless, there is someone who's watching all of our being. And that is what people call it as pure consciousness, pure awareness, everything. And that is what puzzles the whole scientific community even now, the neuroscientists and etc. They cannot find out, what it is. There are a lot of theories though, right? I mean, some of my belief is to go and find out what it is. So I just reading all this new scientific discoveries and etc. But there is a lot of speculation. But then that is a state. What is this pure consciousness state? We know the mind as a place where it all exists, but they don't know what it is, right? How these things come interrelated, and then something is awake and flashing light everywhere. So that is what we are talking about, Turiya. So let's keep there and move on. And there's one example that I have to give you for Turiya, or the awareness is, see, when the moment we are trying to be aware, it is like in a mind, there's a constant, the neural pathways and the activities are happening all the time. The thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your imaginations, past, everything's are happening. And also in the past, I said that if you're talking about a mind, if this is your brain and it is happening, each part we store a lot of information. That's what the science says, that for certain things from your past, the taste as one place it stores, and the driving skill stores in a different place, your memory stored in a different place. So the brain activity changes. So when it comes to awareness, it is like holding a torchlight and focusing literally on where you want to focus. So that is where the awareness comes in. It is the surface as a brain. It can hold a lot of things, lot of content, because we are not easy that, we are forgetting things, right? Most often we store a lot of memories. Even we store our imaginations, everything. So it is filled with a lot of this clutter, and it is there. So if you allow it just be there, automatically these guys started talking to themselves, right? Randomly, the thoughts comes, emotion comes. So that is where the awareness is like a spotlight or a torchlight that you are trying to point to where you want to focus. That way, you're trying to bring the attention back to the present moment and what you're doing. So that way, you become better, be aware of things that's happening in your life, and you don't get attached to those things. You don't get attached to the thoughts, emotions, feelings, situations, people, etc. So that said, the other powerful way to carry on with life is the moment we are aware of what is happening. When I'm saying not becoming an awareness, that maybe becoming awareness is a other state, all self-realization, enlightenment state. But the moment we are aware, detach ourselves as if we are standing in the riverbed, seeing the whole flow of water. We are standing outside. Now we are aware. Things are happening. I acknowledge happening. That gives us superpower. What I mean by the superpower is that is time for us to detach ourselves and question things, what is happening in our life. So what I mean by that is the questioning things is, so obviously, whenever there is something negative emotion that we go through, it can be an irritation, disturbance, or something like not something that is making us uncomfortable. And obviously, the other bigger things add to it, like it can be anger, sadness, worrying, anxiety, stress, etc., and etc. It can go on, depression. All these things can happen to us. And the other side, the good emotions, like being blissful, happy, joyous, and other thing, that is the other side of the emotion. So when you are detaching yourself from all this emotion part of it and the thought and beliefs and etc., so what happens is it gives you a perspective to question it as an observer. That is what Ramana Maharishi says, self-inquiry. Though he talks about who am I as a thing, but for our convenience, what we are trying to understand is from this place, the moment we identify this emotion that is happening to us, how to do the self-inquiry. It can be both for negative emotions as well as for a positive emotion. I'll quickly tell you why it is important to even investigate the positive emotion in a bit. But before that, the first level is being aware. So that is first one is a subtly changing the language pattern of how we associate with these emotions. Most often what we do is we try to say, I am sad, I am angry, I am depressed, right? Generally, or I am happy, I am blissful, I am. We just try to go on and say, I am sad, I am things. The first is the language pattern is the moment as we start using I am experiencing sadness, or I am experiencing anger, I am experiencing, right? It can be happiness or something like that. You are detaching. It is just a word that you're adding to it, right? I am sad to I am experiencing sadness. It is experiencing as a word, or I'm feeling something. So that way, you're consciously being aware that you're separating I am from whatever the emotion that you're feeling. That is by adding, experiencing, or feeling. I hope this makes sense, because this is the first level of separating ourselves from the whole drama, right? So instead of this is happening to me, this is happening. That's all. So that way you're detaching. So the moment you start detaching, the second step, like, you become aware, okay, I'm feeling sad, or I'm experiencing sadness. What do I do now? So the moment you are in that place, you already detached your emotion from all your thoughts and beliefs of identity that I am this. No, you're separated your emotion, which is sadness, from the person, that is who you are, I am, and your thoughts and beliefs and etc. Now that you're separated, now you go on questioning. The first question is, you may ask, where is this thought coming from? I am sad. So where is the thought coming from? And then the mind generally says this, I am sad because someone else yelled at me. Right? Something like that. I am angry because something else. The because generally it becomes our own mental construct that we complete the whole sentence. If I ask you, how are you feeling? First, you'll say, I am happy. I am sad. And I say, what happened? I am sad because of so and so. That because is what we will start inquiring, right? You start saying that someone yelled at me. So why someone, like, yelling at me has to disturb me? You will go on question that. And then where is that thought comes from? Where is that belief is coming from? So that is a deeper process of self-inquiry, and there is no straight one questioner that you can follow to question everything. But naturally, what happens is the moment you start questioning it, you become a dispassionate observer of things, right? You questioning rationally, objectively, where is this thought coming from? Why do I believe it is true? So what in my future, the past things that is making me believe that this is the right thing, or this is the way it's supposed to be? So you start questioning it. So probably what I will do is I will create a one quick, what do you say, a list of questions, and that I share it with you. And how you can practice is probably whenever you are facing any life situation, or it may not be a life situation, it can be like, while you're reading that questionnaire, you can gently observe what you're feeling, and then you can question, like, the feeling is maybe it's happiness as well. You can question it. Why am I happy? Because so and so. Huh? Where does this happiness come from? Why do I believe that? And you can go on and on and on. So I will share it. Just try it out, and you can always share and reach out to me. What do you think of the self-inquiry as a process? And that being said, the initially when I began, I said that it is also important to talk about aware happy moments, right? So the reason is, I tell you, like, from my recent past actually. So once I was feeling really happy, like, I was speaking to some person, my office colleague, and like, we are talking and etc about the work, and I was feeling happy. There is some part of me was really, like, laughing out loud, kind of. So I was wondering, where is this laugh is coming from? Where is this unusual happiness? It's nothing that he said. It is so great that I'm feeling happy. The reason then, when I inquired, when I was started looking into it, so in the whole conversation of our discussion, like, me and the other person in office, so we talked about the third person, right? The third person, how he is not completing the work, and then how he is not doing his duty, and etc. And somewhere part of me is feeling happy that we are bitching literally about the other person. Okay, so to give you that thought is, sometimes these things, like, also gives us a happiness, though we all know that talking behind the back of some third person is not a good thing to do, and etc. But then sometimes we did get our happiness also from that. Though I was not speaking, when the other person speaks, I'm feeling happy about it. So that is some place for me to work towards. So that is where it is important to examine our own inner half state of happiness as well, whether it is coming from an authentic place or it is at the cost of someone, something, some situation. That is a good place to start with as well. So we talked about awareness, being in present, and we talked about, like, self-inquiry. So the other places we talked about something called impermanence. The non-attachment is somewhere we can detach ourselves from the situation very consciously and accept things as it is. All right. So the impermanence is, to give you an example, it is like a one profound idea. If nothing else, if you can think of this one profound idea is, every breath that we take is a small birth and death. Every breath that we take, it is a small birth and death. Think about it. So when we inhale, it is life coming to us. And when we exhale, it is as if we are dying. Literally, some part of us is dying. So that is a very profound idea to me, at least, when we are talking about impermanence. So every breath is a constant reminder is we are warning, we are like, there is a birth and death happening all the time. And nothing in this world is permanent. So that is where we are talking about a little bit of detachments. So the root cause of all the suffering is not just identities and thought, but our attachment to them, right? So the moment we get attached to people, attached to situation, attached to the circumstances, we crave for more and more. And the moment it doesn't happen, we feel sad naturally. We feel depressed because our expectations are not met, right? So that is where the idea of impermanence comes into it. And to understand the impermanence, it is a very profound saying, this too shall pass, or this will also change. So we talked about one story here. So the story of two rings. So there are two brothers, like, the father dies and two brothers take over the possession of the father. And initially they try to live together, but then over a period of time, they feel that no, we will split everything. We'll go in a different way. After they split everything, they find two rings. And now there is one ring is golden ring with all diamonds and etc. The other ring is a normal silver ring. So the elder brother thinks that, okay, he's pretty, like, playing it clever. What he does is, like, he goes and tells to the younger one saying that, in my understanding, this, the golden ring with the diamond and etc., I'm surely our father may not have bought all this thing because he was not so rich. Maybe this is coming from generation to generation, and me being an elder one, I should have this. The younger one says, okay, if you say so, keep it. And the younger one takes a silver ring. So what happens eventually is the elder brother who goes through life, and then he faces life as it is. Like, whenever it is spring, everything is blooming and everything, he's happy. Everything is super. And fall, like, as leaf falls, like, the autumn comes and the leaf wither out, he starts feeling little sad. And then the winter comes in, he's more sad. And he goes through life, like, ups and downs of life as everyone else, right? And then he feels happy and sad. It comes and goes like that. So when he is experiencing something like that, he is also starts feeling depressed, anxious, stress, and sleeplessness, etc. So again, he goes and takes pill for everything, goes to doctor, try to figure out everything, and how to maintain my inner sanity. So that is the life of elder brother. And now comes the younger brother. So this younger brother, he holds the silver ring whenever his brothers shared to him. And he looks at, like, why father has to keep this normal silver ring along with something so precious. So he starts carefully looking at it. And that's where he sees that the inside of the ring, there is something is engraved. Like, there is something that is there. So he reads that this will also change. And that he thinks that is his father's whole understanding of life. That is, this will also change, or this too shall pass. So living from that side, what happens is for him also the happy moments comes into his life. Like just like spring, there is a good happiness that comes in day-to-day life. And he feels rejoiceful, like, awesome, I am loving it. But then he constantly reminds himself, this too shall pass, or this will also change. Though it is a happy moment, he doesn't lose his composure that, oh, this is going to be like forever. No, he consciously knows this happiness, whatever I am experiencing, it is momentarily. I am grateful. Things are happening. I'm happy, but this is very momentarily happening, and constantly reminds himself, this too shall pass. At the same thing, whenever the bad things that happens in his life, what we classify as bad, again he says this cannot be permanent. It will also change. So that way, he follows a much more of a better place, which is inner composure. This too shall pass, or this will also change. Be it be the happy thing situation that we think of, the negative one. So with that summarizes a lot of things for us. So quickly, if you really look at what are the impermanent things in our life, our thoughts primarily. Can we just say that what is our next thought is going to be? We cannot. Can we know that what is the quality of a thought or anything? We cannot. Can we say about emotion, body, beliefs, identity? Nothing is permanent. For an example, the science says that this is the truth for now, and also we know that science keeps changing their stance. I mean, it's the good way. That is the way the science works, right? There is a hypothesis which they do the experiment and then come to a conclusion, and also challenge the previously concluded scientific evidence as well. So that is a very nature. So everything is subject to change. That is understanding impermanence. And we also looked at nothing is permanent. To quickly summarize, we talked about how our earth is impermanent, sun is impermanent. When I say that, they say after a couple of billions of years, the earth will get absorbed by the sun, and sun will burst into a nebula, right? So it is nebula or supernova. It is going to be that explosion and etc. No, it becomes a nebula. Sorry. So it becomes a nebula. So eventually, even the galaxies, Andromeda and our Milky Way collide and etc. So that's what science is predicting. So nothing is permanent, including this earth. Any knowledge that we try to acquire, any idea, it is just that it is going to change eventually. That being said, companies come, companies go. You talk about the countries, civilization, everything. There were so many civilizations before us flourished, but everything comes to an end. So this kind of an understanding, that is understanding that this will also change, be it be good or the worst and the bad, we will be in a place of balanced state, or kind of the place of equanimity. That is an idea that whenever we face day-to-day challenges, we can constantly remind, nothing we have to do. Even when you're aware, we can always say, this will change. That's one mantra. That's all. This will change. Period. Nothing. You're just trying to detach. Everything changes, and this situation or this emotion, this feeling also will change. Instead of suffering, instead of fighting over it. Like, what they say is, what we resist, persist. So instead of resisting the change, accept it, be with it, leave it. Yes. Now the question, if you are thinking of, oh, so do I not take any action? Take action as well, but not from a place of reaction. I mean, not from the place of reacting to the thing like, oh, I have to do something, but mindfully, objectively plan it, think about it, and then take a mindful action. That's all. So now the last step that what we discussed in the past is, now all the situations happening around us, the other way to come out of all this suffering is having an identity which is much larger than us. Like, that is, I am trying to say, is a cosmic identity, right? The cosmic identity is primarily we are one with everything. Literally, we are all connected, one with everything, be it universe or to the very single cell in our body. We are connected. So that kind of a realization also opens a big level of understanding within us that how insignificant a day-to-day situation can be, right? Most often we think that the situation is the deciding factor of our life and entire being, but then after a few years, it feels like very insignificant. Or the other way is they say this when two people are fighting, especially one is saying his perspective, the other person is saying his perspective. There is always a third perspective. Like, they say that if you are a god who's observing this conversation between two people fighting over things that very insignificant in life, what will God think? So that is getting a perspective, the third perspective, which is so big, the whole world, the whole universe. And then we are talking about two-person fighting over something or some experience of us we are feeling annoyed and discomfortable with. So creating that kind of a perspective is what we are talking about. So this one, I started off with a quote of Albert Einstein that primarily goes like, the significant thing, uh, the signif- yeah, the significant problem we face cannot be changed at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. So the significant problems we face cannot be changed at the same level at which we created them, to be clear and concise. So what he means is we need to change the perspective. Either we have to go upwards or inwards. And that is where people say that in Tamil, there is a saying, right? Andathil உள்ளது பிண்டத்தில் உள்ளது. That is something like what is in the cosmos, it is what is in you as well. So that is what we are talking about: microcosm, macrocosm, and etc. Right? So what is the moment you identify yourself as a cosmic identity, it is no more of me, my thing, or my identity is this. No, you are creating something larger than all these things. So that way you start attaching or becoming the bigger version of the universe itself, instead of having a narrow small uh, encompassing thing. You become the bigger thing, like you're a cosmos. That is where the whole idea of aham brahmasmi, aham, I, Brahma, the creator, the supreme being rather, and asmi is I am. So I, Brahma, and am, that is I am Brahma, I am everything, I am the universe, I am everything, literally I am God. So when you say that, it is not from a place of ego. Generally, first time when you hear Aham Brahmasmi, we may tend to believe that that comes from a place of egoistic place. But then on the deeper inspection, we all know that that is a very humbling place. So you would start seeing everyone. And that is where also sometimes if our ego plays a game, we start saying, I am Brahm, but he's not. I am God, but he's not God. He is doing all those things, so he's not God, right? So we try to see that. But in reality, in truth, you're trying to see everything as a whole being, right? So that is a larger way of seeing things. That is Aham Brahmasmi. So by saying that, if you go into macrocosm, so I'll combine this macrocosm and microcosm little together to easier to understand this. Essentially, we know that everything is made up of atom, right? Our inner body, as well as the space, whatever we observe in the universe, anything, planets, stars, anything that whatever we are seeing in observable universe, are all made up of atom, the minute thing that we can go forward and break it down into. So from that place, we are all feel connected. So the moment we see that the macrocosm is like, okay, the outward universe, then we discussed about something behind me, that is flower of life. So in the flower of life, how from one single consciousness, everything starts manifesting, right? So we started as 7 days of creation. We talked a lot about it, but for this ease of straightforward communication, we can keep it as one consciousness expanded and manifested into everyone else. That is where you and me, we also come into the play, right? So there is one consciousness expanded. And when you're looking at the universe, there is only 4% of the universe is visible, observable, but the rest all is a space. And that is a space of inner stillness we are referring to. And then the same thing when we go inwards, we take an inward journey to a smallest cell in our body. The cell will be made up of atoms. The minute ones are atoms. Like, when you break the cell, molecules and molecules into atoms. So in that atom, if you look at it, obviously, three things: proton, electron, and neutron. The neutron and proton is in the centermost nucleus, and electron revolves around it. And when you're talking about electrons, they say that the electron lives much, much, much larger than the universe itself. What they mean is the universe, I mean, the electron stays for almost 10 to the power of 38 into 6.6, which is much larger than the universe age itself. That's where they say we are immortal in a way. Everything, like, we can decompose into atom level, but then we are immortals. Some part of us always remains. That is right now, it is going to be there. So that is microcosm when you go inwards and experience life as it is. And finally, we talked about one important idea. The concept is everything is connected. For this, I used a story of Tom Chi. In that story, I talked about story of heart, story of our breath, and story of mind. Essentially, every single breath that, I mean, every single heartbeat, it is to move the molecule. In the centermost, there is iron, which holds the oxygen. As an iron, as an atom, no way possible in this whole universe because it was never there according to science in the beginning. So how it created is collusion. That's a larger than life things that's happening all time around us, which is bigger, much bigger in the time scale, which not even in the beginning of the universe, iron was there. We discussed about that. Then we talked about story of breath. So the oxygen as an element, like, whatever we are inhaling right now. So it is not possible, say a few millions of years, 600 million ago, it was not possible. And the reason why we have oxygen is because of something called cyanobacteria. That's what we discussed. And from a age of cyanobacteria, that if you and me were there, we wouldn't even understand what is the significance of this life. The cyanobacteria would have thought, okay, I born and then died. Like, what else? What's the big deal? Like, yes, I bred something. What is the big deal? But then in a larger scale, that changed every single cyanobacteria which is alive and which is part of plants, which gave birth to oxygen and which helped us create, or not helped us, helped the planet create ozone layer and giving life to you and me. So that way, there is nothing is insignificant in this whole world. Everything is connected. Everything is working together. So that being said, let's try to wrap this up. So from the place that when we moment we understand nothing is permanent, everything is connected, every breath that we're taking right now at this moment, it is nothing but an outbreath of a plant around us. That way we are literally connected to the plant. We owe to the plant. And every outbreath of us is going to be that towards the plant, right? So we are constantly interconnected or inter-becoming. That is a thing that we discuss, inter-becoming and being. So that way we're all connected. So don't have to really hold on to our own perspective and thought and separate other being and situation and say, I don't like it. That is primarily self-centric. The moment we become inclusive, everything falls in place. So that I like to end this session with one quote. I know there is too much to take in, but I'm sure that, this journey doesn't end here. It is going to be there for a very long time, at least as long as it is takes. So the quote is by Meister Eckhart. Meister Eckhart, he once said, every object, every creature, every man, woman, child has a soul. And it is a destiny of all to see as God sees, to know as God knows, to feel as God feels, to be as God is. Think about it. It is a state of being as God. That is nothing but being one, and the state of pure awareness is a godly state that we are trying to achieve. And from the state, we may not hold on to a lot of things in our life. That way, our life become much more peaceful place and much more of a, we can hold an inner peace or inner stillness. So that way we come to an end of the review. Yes, there are a few more exercises that we discussed. If you are interested, I can go through it or probably I can share it. It's already 8 o'clock. And actually I wanted to practice one session today. Probably tomorrow we can, since we are ending tomorrow, we will have a session tomorrow. That's primarily like, the one thing of the sacred geometry, like, out of body experience. And some people said they liked it much more better. So that is going into a cosmos and becoming one awareness and expanding into a whole manifesting thing. So that we will do on tomorrow, as well as we will take one other practice and we will practice tomorrow. So yes, so let me know your thoughts. Is it too fast today as well? I'm not sure. And thank you so much for joining. So quickly, let me open up to you and listen to your feedbacks and thoughts. Anybody? Tanaji?
Yeah.
Yeah, Tanaji. So what happened? Okay. So the moment you open
As
it,
this is the summing up session, but I can't.
I
Hello?
cannot hear you, Tanaji.
Hello. Why?
I cannot hear you. Your voice is so low.
Okay.
Yeah.
As this is the summing up session,
Mm-hmm.